right, you maggots, listen up. I must warn you, my fingernails are still long. I did a lot of reading on Hallicrafters radios, and because I never liked them, they're always a lot of times their price point is always good. The radio is always nice looking. That they strive for uh, lipstick on a pig type of thing. Their circuitry is not that great. The coils they use are little plastic things, and they don't have the Q of the better other radios, but it doesn't matter because their advertising was over the top compared to the other guys. But this radio is considered one of the hardest ones to work on. And they complain about this wafer switch that runs throughout the entire radio. Got to remember, this is triple tune front end, and it's got three coil banks that just do the RF, and then of course the oscillator. So there's three sections that are tuned coils that have to do with the RF, cleaning it up even before it mixes with the oscillator and becomes part of the IF. So that's the way they did it. And then as time went on, the radio manufacturers took that one stage off. And that's what I told you on other videos, that they keep taking things off that the customer really won't notice it's there unless they have a weak signal and they have the two different radios next to each other. That's when you'll notice the one radio gets the signal and the other radio doesn't. And that's what they do. They someone said, like with television, they tried to make the resolution good enough that you could see the button on the person's shirt, but you couldn't see the thread that sews the button on. And let's give them this. And in later years, look what they did with television. It went back the other way. Let's give them more resolution. But when it comes to radios, you'll get all the way down to in Hallicrafters S120. It has really no front end on it. It's really sad. And there's people rebuild those, but they're junk. But anyway, this radio is considered one of the hardest. Now, when I first looked at this, I just said, let me take it totally apart. Let me get the front panel off it so I don't scratch it. That's in the other room. The side panels that hold the front panel on, they're off it. They're like a triangular shaped, because this is the rack mount model. You can also put it in a case. But anyway, the side panels are off. When you take the side panels off, you're able to get to these capacitors that everybody complains about. There's one here. One end of the capacitor actually has a braid on it, and there's a capacitor buried down in here. So you're going to have to unsolder it up here, go down through here and cut the lead, or unsolder it, pull the capacitor out, put the new one in. And this is what they complain about. This is like one of the toughest parts. Now, I want to tell you, this selector switch has never been sprayed by anything in 7 years, and it's in remarkable condition. Now, most of these radios, they complain that the wafer switch is very hard to clean. It's usually jet black because it's been sprayed and it oxidized from the spray cleaners. Spray cleaners have acid in them, and they temporarily clean the contacts. You know, you spray it on, you move the selector back and forth, and now it's working. But after a couple months, it's going to need to be sprayed again. Well, let me tell you about Hallicrafters. The old Hallicrafters, SX28, I believe it is. The Bakelite used on it would be the band switch. If you spray with those spray cleaners, it soaks into the Bakelite, and then the Bakelite becomes conductive. And see, there's a metal rod that runs through the switch, and you'll notice there's terminals right here. Well, if that becomes conductive, the high voltage goes from that terminal through the Bakelite into the ground. This strip, this mounting rod, threaded rod or whatever they use, with the different spacers in it, it's at ground potential. So I tell you, whenever I work on a radio, I go deep, deep, deep into reading, and the more I read, the more this thing would become a challenge for me. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, how can I make it less of a challenge. In this case, I took the side plates off. All right, that helps a little bit more. And I took the dial plates off, the round dials, so I don't crack or break those. And it's down to just the chassis itself. And I can put this chassis on either side to work on it. And that's what I wanted. Well, anyway, so you've sprayed the contact cleaner on the Hallicrafters. You turn it on, and now the electrons flow from these terminals down through the Bakelite and onto this, and the Bakelite starts to smoke, and then it becomes conductive. Go do your research. I've done it. I told you there's a learning curve on radios to learn how to fix them. There's also a learning curve on each manufacturer. That's why the one guy did a complete video on how to redo that transmission for the tuning front end with the tuning dials and the knobs, and it's got a transmission, it's got a clutch. Guy did a nice job, but he never mentioned that it might be hard to take out. But I'm thinking he has a slightly different chassis, and when he undid his bolts, it just came out. But I did notice he also had to take the couplers off between the capacitor and that. You have to loosen those. He took his off, so be forewarned on that. But the wiring on the Hallicrafters, there's no service loop. They pull the wires really tight. This thing, when it comes to wiring and good layout, it's not. It's the bottom. But the radio itself, from the outside, and the features it had in the day it was made, it's highly recommended to operate. But the people that have had to repair one of these, they sing a different tune, as they say. And that's what I'm telling you. I'm going to tell you this is for someone that really wants to be challenged. And that's what I need. Now, I have my capacitors. Now, like I warned you, my fingernails are still long. But you notice I have black marks. And that's what you would call the foil. When the capacitor is wound, the last piece of foil that goes around forms a shield. So you want that lead to ground. And on these capacitors, like, I don't know if this was in the frame here, this one's got a line on it, and that is not, it's not a polarity, it's the shield. Now this one actually says shield on it. So in other words, in the circuitry, most likely you want that end of the capacitor to go to ground, or closest to ground. And what it does, it shields, it prevents signal from getting into that capacitor and mixing. That's why in audio, it keeps the AM hum from the room you're in from getting into circuitry. That's why there's a big deal about putting capacitors in a certain way on tube equipment, because the tubes are very sensitive to extra noises, especially like a television set. If you had a high voltage section, there's a high voltage magnetic field that comes off the flyback. And if you were to put a capacitor in backwards, the circuit will still work, but it'll do weird things. So that's not really a polarity. That's a shield. It's the final winding, and it goes to that lead, and you want that as close to ground. Now these are .01s. They're hiding in there, but the ones you're going to have the most trouble with are the ones on the front end. They're hanging down in there. And what a lot of people do is when they recap the radio, they don't do those. They sell it to somebody else. He goes troubleshooting and finds out the front end is basically dead. The tube is good. The voltages will be a little bit off because I think these might also go to the screen. So the person will say, check the caps. The guy's like, and you really can't see these caps when you have the side plate on. But then you look at the diagram and it has an arrow pointing telling you there's a cap there. And then you look, and then you need all kinds of soldering irons and cutters and stuff. But take the side panels off, and you're going to have to take the front panel off. You've got to take this radio totally apart if you want to recap it and keep your sanity. But other people recap it, and they do just the caps they can get to. And I'm going to tell you, I've already tested some of the caps. All the wax ones are bad. They're all leaky. A lot of them are almost near short. And that's all I want to tell you. And like I said, I want to warn you about those spray cleaners. Those spray cleaners, you do that one just before you sell the radio. And the guy that does the mechanism for the band, not the band, it would be the band dial, the dial cords, that mechanism with it's got a gear shifter in it, and a clutch. He opens his up and he finds somebody has sprayed lubricant down in the back, and there's a pressure washer back there that's been flattened out and sprayed, and that's a clutch mechanism. You want that only to slip when the thing gets to the end of the dial. And what the person did was they didn't understand where they should spray the oil because they didn't do their due diligence. They didn't do the research. See, I read everything I can before I buy something because I know I don't know everything. You know, people say, "Oh, you think you know everything." No, I come across as being cocky because I've had to fix what other people screwed up, and then they glaze it over after I get it working. They make like, well, it wasn't that hard. Yeah, because you told them the trick. It's like the last video I did. You know, the angle you have to hold that mechanism on to get it to come out. If you didn't know that, like I didn't know that, you're going to sit there and go, I have all the nuts and bolts off, and the thing won't come out. And then you start maneuvering it, and I was very gentle, and all of a sudden I hit an angle, it came out. And then once you know that, oh, it becomes a piece of cake. Now this here is a ground lug that actually gets soldered to the side plate. There's all kinds of little things here. Now this is basically could pass the government inspection. The government did use some of these radios, but these radios with that shifter on the front to shift between main tuning. It's got a high-speed main tuning. It's got a shifter that goes between band spread and main dial, and that's for when you're using it as a ham receiver. You go in on the ham bands, and then you only work the band spread itself, and it's really a weird mechanism, and that's what goes wrong with these radios. The other thing I told you is the band selector. It's been sprayed. The one guy says it's jet black. Not the last radio, the radio before last, the Collins I did, it was unbelievable how many times it had been sprayed and how deep, dark the oxide was on the tracks. Now this one here, it looks as though the radio is only 30 years old. That's how good a shape this selector switch is. Now it could still have bad section in it. It could still be bad, but I just wanted to tell you, if you get into one of these, and this is the toughest one, and then you got these guys doing these videos with a kitchen radio, they're recapping it. There's like 6 capacitors in there. Well, you gotta do this, gotta do this. The dandy guy. And the dandy guy, I pick on him, and he must have saw one of my videos, and he went and got a radio that I said was really hard. He took the front panel off the radio, and the whole radio has to be recapped. He did the video. He didn't get hardly any views. That radio's never going to be finished now. Yeah, he watches how many people view the video. Now, when I do one of these radios, my views drop way off, and then at some point, someone will say to me, "You know, I'm getting tired of you doing BC 340s or 348 3. I can't BC 348." Yeah, guy actually emailed me. I'm tired of you working on that. Well, my thing is, this is what I'm working on, and I'm showing you what I'm working on, and I'm telling you how I'm approaching it. That's the way I do mine. I'm not looking for videos. I'm not looking to make money. I didn't even get up to 1,000 people yet. We're getting there, though. But anyway, that's it. I think that's it. All right, that's it.